off or
Yeah,
whatever a little early.
for
So I'm
sure.
I'm 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 ready whenever you belong.
All right. Well, in that case, Stan Liszewski, Terminal Nation. Thanks a lot
Yo,
for
what's
coming
up?
on, man. I appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate you for having me.
Hey, anytime, man. You want to get into a little bit of background about you and Terminal Nation and how y'all came up in the Little Rock scene?
Yeah, totally. So, back in 2014, so this band is, to the surprise of many,
Mhm.
about 10 years old. Um, I was playing at Jungle Juice at the time. That was like my closer to my full time band, but I don't think we were full time at that time. In fact, actually, we had scaled back a significant amount,
Mm.
and so I wanted a band that could play a little bit more, but not. I mean, we didn't really have any sort of wild that. We just wanted to play, and this may also come as a shock to people who are newly on board the Termination train.
Mhm.
I wanted a band that was very, very hardcore punk, like fast punk,
Right.
maybe leaning power violence adjacent.
Yeah.
Uh, or fastcore, I think probably would be the more appropriate term. But very influenced from like Crossed Out, Infest, um, Left for Dead, even like Haymaker, stuff like that. So I wanted a band that sounded like that, and uh, and so I got some other friends of mine, and we started Terminal Nation, which was going to be kind of all of our side project bands,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
it ended up kind of evolving into being my only band and my full time band. As close to full time as you can get.
Right. No, absolutely. I'm not sure if you remember this, Stan, but I reviewed your demo, the Terminal Nation demo, when yeah, dude, you emailed me.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
a long time. It was 2014. I still have it up on that old blog too. It was a hollowed out blog.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yeah, you remember that?
It's all
And
coming back to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
I even wrote in my review. I was like, I'm pretty sure they got Terminal Nation from the Infest band, not from the Infest band, from the band Infest.
Yeah.
My little hunch there, and as well as the early vocal,
Sure.
the that old school power violence barking like attack. I loved that shit, dude. I
Same. Same.
Yeah. So no, I honestly the the beginning was extremely DIY, and that's why I was like, holy shit. And I've been following y'all ever since then. So it's been really cool to see you guys go from, just essentially a side project band into contacting me of all people, 10 years ago, like literally, and seeing you guys have a label now. You guys have put out a few full lengths, and with this other one coming up, would you mind going over a bit about the inspiration and maybe the lyrical content themes? I know the last one, Holocene Extinction, was really fucking all about, the way that it's really hard for me to wrap my head. Please,
Cool.
if you
Yeah.
could please
So,
explain.
so I will. No, no. Great question. And I have actually pulled up all the songs here on my phone,
Dope.
just kind of remind me, overall overarching themes and things like that. But I do want to say you are right about Termination being an in track.
Sweet.
Very little known story. I had wanted uh, I think this is, but it's a cool story.
Please, yeah.
Over the years when Infest was broken up, no one thought they would get back together ever. I think 2012 they did the circuit where they did L.A. reunion and Chaos and Tejas,
Yes.
and I went to Chaos and Tejas. It's about 8 hours from me, give or take. And when I was there, I saw Joe. Me and him got a picture together, and I was like, "Hey, man, this is kind of a weird question, but is it cool if like I want to start a band and call it Terminal That song? Like, is that cool?" Like I was like, I feel like I know bands do this all the time, especially like hardcore and in punk.
Oh
They
yeah.
where they name a song after more of a classic
Hmm.
band, or a song from a classic band or something like that. And but I was like, with the rule. there's no like set line of rules, but I don't want Joe D'Annunzio, who in the infest in the power violence lore world, this is a man who doesn't take shit from anybody. Like, so
Yeah.
I didn't want him to like come and fucking seek me out and want to whoop my ass for naming it songs. So I was like, I'll just ask the dude and see what he thought, but I'm really dead set. The next band I start will be called Termination. So I asked him, is it cool if I name my band if I start a band and I name it Termination? And he just didn't skip a beat. And he's like, as long as it doesn't fucking suck, man, I don't care. And
Makes
so
sense. Yeah.
that's that. I think that's a great Joe D'Annunzio story of the many that are out there. Um, so I'll just throw an extra Joe D'Annunzio story in the hat there. Anyway, so regarding the new album, it's called Echoes of the Devil's Den. Will be coming out on 20 Buck Spin on May the 3rd. Um, and it's something that we worked on for the better part of a year. We didn't come up with the album title until it was one of the last things we came up with, and the album was almost finished by the time we came up with the title.
Yeah.
Um, the lyrics to the first song, which is "Echoes of the Devil's Den," kind of came almost at the very end as well. And so, if anyone who's followed Terminal Nation, and anyone who's familiar with like your subgenres of punk, hardcore, know that these are regionally based. You always hear of like West Coast power violence, New York hardcore,
Yeah.
East Bay hardcore, whatever. So like it's very rooted in regions and representing where you're from.
Hmm.
We're from Little Rock, Arkansas. Like there's some great bands that have came from here, like Econochrist,
Yes.
but they don't claim, but they claim California, or they ended up claiming California.
California.
Um, but I mean, there's like Living Sacrifice, which is not they argument that they were inventors of that style of metalcore.
For sure.
There's Pallbearer, which in my opinion, hands down, is the best doom band in the world right
They
now.
do those ethereal vocals fucking perfectly.
Yeah,
I
it's
love.
incredible. It's incredible. So there's a lot of bands from Arkansas that are good, but I don't think overall Arkansas, Little Rock, whatever, has gotten its shine. I know. Are you familiar with Burned Up Bled Dry? Does
No, I'm
that
not actually.
okay? So this is a old '90s. Just throwing a little bit of really dive into the question,
Please.
but old '90s power violence band on. They had two releases. I believe both of them were on Slap-a-Ham. They played a couple of um, the speed trials or the festivals like California, way back in the '90s. Um, but that band rules. But they're from Northwest Arkansas, and it's like everyone looks at that as like, oh, this is like low key one of the best album 7 inches in the Slap-a-Ham catalog that
Wow.
just doesn't get the shine.
Okay.
Like a dollar bin gem that you find in a record store or whatever.
Well, shit.
So check out Burned Up Bled Dry. It's very good. It's very serious. Power Balance like has a more serious tone than a lot of the other. I don't, or darker. Let's say darker tone of the other Slap Ham releases at the time. But that band rocks. They recently reunited, but they split off, and some of the guys I believe went on to be like in From Ashes Rise.
Oh,
Um,
what?
and
That's dope.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So Arkansas does have a rich musical history that I recognize, but overall, nobody. When you say Arkansas and hardcore, nobody. It doesn't really matter. Like that doesn't really grab people's attention. So we wanted a title that had something to do with where we're from, right? So we
Okay.
wanted to tie it because we always put on for where we're from. We always put on for Arkansas. We don't shy away from the fact that we're from Arkansas.
Right.
Um, and so in Northwest Arkansas, a few hours from us, there's a Devil's Den State Park. Um, and so there's a cave kind of in the middle of the park. park. It's big natural forest. There's some mountains, stuff like that.
Mm.
But there's a cave, and it's locked off. I believe it's like they put up locks because the kids would go in there and die and stuff because they
Shit.
would take like Ouija boards. But when English settlers first came to discover it, the natives, there was always lore about this cave that there's a pit, a hole, and and what it is it's a cooling pit, and so like a gust of cold air comes out, and then a gust of hot air comes out, whatever. But the lore was for that is a hole that falls straight to hell.
Wow.
Um, and so a lot of people have died like trying to climb, see how far they can climb because it's a hole, and until the last 50, 60 years we haven't had the technology to know
Sure.
what's
Yeah.
in it. So people like in the 1800s would get and like climb down a rope and see how far they go, and they just drop and they'd never be seen again.
Jesus.
Now I believe it's filled with water, but it's pretty acidic water, so it's not like you could. It's not recommended to go scuba diving in
Yeah.
there or
No
whatever.
swimming holes.
But yeah, yeah. But so but a lot of that people in recent previous centuries had thought that was like the hole to hell,
Right.
right there. And I always thought that was cool. And then it was like there's also a significant amount of like paranormal events that have happened in that area. And so
Interesting.
like I think in the 1940s, a girl went missing, like a little kid, and they spent like a week long search party looking for her and couldn't find her. And then they went back to where she was lost, and they found her unscratched, not dehydrated, not without food. It was like, and she was like, I think if I'm getting this wrong, somebody gonna crucify me from Arkansas. But the story is that she was, I think maybe 8, 10 years old, was under the impression she was only lost for like 10 minutes, but she was
Weird.
gone for a week, and they don't know, did she go into another dimension and then or a time warp or something like speculation of what, and I don't know how much of the paranormal stuff that I believe, but
Right.
I am fascinated by stuff like that.
For sure.
The biggest thing is one of the most infamous alien abduction stories. Actually, Netflix just did a special or like a docu paranormal stuff, and one of the episodes is about alien abduction at Devil's Den State Park,
Holy shit.
where it's two credible people. I believe it's two doctors. So, like, in the eyes of society, they're like, oh, the doctor, that's about as legit as it comes.
Right.
So, if this dude is risking his reputation and his work and whatever, to say that he like all this like these weird little microchips in his body over the years. Like he'll get X-rays, and there's no incisions where they're there. So I think it just hit Netflix like a couple weeks ago. I can't remember the name of the docu series, but there was an episode on Devil's Den State Park. So we wrote some heavy ass music and spookiness of it. We played around with like some synth stuff, but we didn't want
Nice.
to be corny with
Right.
synth. We wanted to do it like horror movie style synth, kind of in the way that Entomb does it in Left Hand Path.
Fuck yes. Okay.
And I definitely didn't want it to be silly. So I think we ended up just we were like, well, we want something that pays homage to Arkansas. So the references to the Devil's Den, like that is a nod to where we're from, and that's a pretty hard name for a state park
Fuck
is
yeah, it
the
is.
Devil's Den State
Literally,
Park.
I was gonna say, holy fuck.
So totally, totally. And then also during the writing process, so my house was hit by a tornado, where we were
Yes,
practicing,
that's right.
and like so like you could look at it where like I barely survived. So I was in my truck. I wasn't at home when it happened, but my wife was at home.
Hmm.
And like my truck had been an eighth of a mile down the road, I might have died. Might have been lifted up and thrown.
Yeah.
If the tree that came into my house had been just, a little like 10 feet to the left, maybe it would have, killed my wife or
Right.
something, whatever. If it had been a quarter mile this way, it could have leveled the school that my kids were at. There's a whole bunch of things. And like, you know, that and trying to battle with my insurance company to get my house put back together. So
Hmm.
I am in a rental house right now. been they're almost 13 months
Right.
since the tornado hit my house. So it's like it's ruined my financially, ruined me, ruined my credit, ruined everything. And I worked so hard to like get to a point where, hey, we can finally afford a house, and then it just gets taken from me. And
Right.
the company that I mean, you have to have homeowners insurance, and they're there for things like this, and they just like have kind of fought me every step of the way. But then a few months before that, our bass player Chase was in a pretty significant car wreck, and I believe the it that what happened was he was like getting some and stopped at or no, somebody in front of him stopped abruptly. He stopped abruptly, and the food basically went flying to the front. So he took his seatbelt off just for a moment to pick it up off the floor of the car. And when he took his seatbelt off, he was going through a green light intersection, and somebody T-boned him, and belt was off, so he got thrown through the sunroof
Jeez.
of his vehicle. They thought that he may never walk again, that he would have to have all these skin grafts. They're like, he'll definitely never be able to work again. He's a barber, he cuts hair for a living,
Mm.
and he'll never be able to play bass again. But he's one of the hardest fucking. So he like overcame, and he still has residual effects, and this is, I mean, we're looking at almost a year and a half later,
Wow.
give or take, almost 2 years. So I feel like we lived through the Devil's Den. Like in the past year, Devil's Den, we practiced like, we did all the songwriting in a house that was hit by the tornado. The basement was okay. So, like, but it had the stench of mold from like the storm and the rain and
Yeah.
water just soaking into the walls. So it was gross and it was nasty, but I think it was a perfect set for writing an album.
This
So
album in
that's where,
particular, especially for sure.
yeah, that's where the name comes from. Have you listened to the album out of
I
curiosity? Did you
haven't.
get like a
No, I didn't get an advance or anything like that.
okay? I can send you that, after we chat,
That'd be
if you
rad.
want to
Yeah,
hear it. Um,
absolutely.
it covers a lot of themes, and basically, like, when you're going through a tough time, because me and my family, we like lived in a hotel for like 2 months,
Mm.
family of four in in like a 600 square foot hotel. Still, the world keeps moving. No matter, like, that's one of the themes is like, even if you're living in the Devil's Den, the world,
Yeah,
they like, you fucking almost die in a tornado and get on a Friday afternoon while trying to pick your kids up from school. Guess what? Your fucking piece of shit boss still expects you to be at work on Monday morning.
literally. Yeah.
Yeah, no, fact, straight up. That everyone, the bills still keep coming in. Internet bills in the mail. I was like, yo, I don't have gas, electricity, water. What the, how the fuck do you think? You think I use the internet in this house?
Yeah.
So it's like all these like things where like nobody gives a fuck what you're going, what you go through in the grand scheme of things. So if you don't fucking advocate and stand up for yourself, nobody else. How can you fucking expect somebody else to do that? That's kind of where the first song comes from. Were you gonna say something there?
No, man. I think that you basically the. I think that's one of the hardest lessons for anybody to learn. You know, if you can't be comfortable with yourself, nobody else is gonna be fucking comfortable with you.
Straight up, straight up. I looked at music. While I didn't, during like that difficult time, like again, months and months of living in a hotel. Not I had broken my hand, and so I couldn't work. So I did a lot of like self reflection and stuff. Like, I just
Mm.
felt like I was just antsy to just be in. I just felt like I had no control. Um, and in that time period, to take my mind off of shit, I wasn't listening to new music. I wasn't listening to a lot of hardcore. I wasn't listening to a lot of death metal, grind, anything extreme. Dude, I'll be honest, I was listening to shit and ACDC and Judas Priest
Going back to the
and
classics, huh?
Iron Maiden. Yeah. But like all that music, like, is especially Priest, Judas Priest, a lot. But here's the thing, dude. They make fucking fun
They
music, and
do, truly.
I just wanted shit to like kind of take my off of everything that I was going through. So I was listening to fucking fun music. Now, Judas Priest writes a lot of songs about fucking being badass.
Yeah.
And so, and so that's a lot of the intro track, Echoes of the Devil's Den. It's very much a death metal track, but the lyrics are about just ass. It could be interpreted in a number of ways. Um, but it's just about fucking not taking any shit. So like Echoes of the Devil's Den is like, yeah, we came out of the fucking Devil's Den and we're fucking stronger for it.
Fuck yeah.
And
Yes.
so that's the first I think we really experimented with a song where it's just like I don't want to say the lyrics aren't serious because they are. They
Mm-hmm.
are about like standing up for yourself against powers that are much stronger, people that have more power and influence over you. But it is overall just about kicking fucking ass and standing up for yourself. Now, people who are familiar with Terminal Nation know that we talk about a lot of like socio-political things. That hasn't changed. The first two singles, written by the Victor and Merchants of Bloodshed, are both about. So, written by the Victor is kind of here in Arkansas. We have had educational policies put forward recently. Kind of taking stabs at like DEI things in the workplace, taking stabs at um, critical race theory, I guess is what they call it.
Yeah.
And, and like, yeah, I mean, like, I know, let's not teach people about slavery or segregation or Jim Crow or anything like that. Let's just like talk about only good stuff about how, whatever. And so it's rewriting a really a false narrative. But here's the thing: there, while it's pretty callous to dismiss well it's just disingenuous to just tell a lie,
Right.
like to just like teach a lie. It's even more callous for the people in the 1800s to the 1950s 60s to fucking 20 um people who suffered through um some of these dark periods. I mean, you could make the argument that now there's just or not make the argument. And there's a lot of bullshit that's still going on.
Right.
But for the people that are suffering or that have suffered or that are fighting for suffering, for their suffering,
Yes.
or for who they are, whatever the case may be, to be like 200 years after their legacy is just erased,
Right.
um, is like unconscionable.
Truly. To the people who
Yeah,
put
yeah.
you.
Imagine living your entire life as a slave, whatever, and then like 200 years later, you would hope that the world is a better place. And while slavery doesn't exist, they also don't want you your struggles to be known. So there's like let's
Yes.
brush this under the rug. And so it's just inconceivable. So that's where written by the victor is that those who have power are the ones that kind of shape that narrative, and what can we do to stop them from basically rewriting history. I mean, there's a obviously fuck who's the original quote, history is written by the victor.
Right. I can't
it's
remember who it was.
it's an author like
Was
I'll
it
tell you
George
his.
Orwell?
No,
1984?
it's
Yeah.
not, but it's very of that mindset.
For sure.
But I'll think.
Right.
I'm sure, but that quote is mainly used in the context of war. So if like a country wins in war, they can say whatever they want, which is also true. But it does bleed over into other facets of now.
Absolutely.
And then we have and so that does tie into war, Merchants of Bloodshed that we recently dropped, which features kind of maybe an unexpected special guest, Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage.
Dude,
Um,
I did see that. Didn't get the chance to listen to it, but I did see. How
listen
did
to
you?
it.
No. How the hell did
Okay.
you get that? How'd you get Jesse Leach on there?
So a few and say what you will about Killswitch Engage. I'm not a Killswitch Engage like super fan or anything. I appreciate like some of their earlier albums. They were albums that helped me gateway me into like more extreme sides of music.
For sure.
But I think they're a very good. I think they're an incredible um rock band now. I guess would be the term. I mean, they're almost like radio rock. I guess I didn't realize how big like in my purview, but then when somebody puts on their music, I'm not necessarily mad at it
Right.
either.
Yeah.
And so it's just not been in my purview for a long time. But I believe he did a interview with Kerrang several years ago, and they were like COVID, peak COVID. Um, and they're like, "What are you listening to right now?" And he listed off a bunch of bands that are way bigger than us, and then in that list is Terminal Nation.
Fucking
And I was like,
rad.
"What the fuck? This is wild." And then he sent us a DM on Instagram and was like, "Hey guys," he followed us, and then the band group chat was like, "Yo, the singer of Killswitch Engage just followed us. Like, is this like a is this surely he's not into like our music. I don't know. But I mean that dude is legitimately like a guy who came from a hardcore punk. So he messaged us and he was like, I just love what you guys are doing, blah blah blah. And the uh description of what he used was like I was like, oh, this dude knows his shit. This dude's not whatever. I mean, obviously he plays in a band that has a lot of red tape. They have a sound and like in I don't know if the word is an image, but they have a certain sound that like their fan base is if you know, so he plays that and I'm not saying that he doesn't like that style of music either, but he's not he's not somebody who's not into extreme music that way. So I think he said he's like you guys are awesome because you combine all my favorite elements of Trap Them, His Hero Is Gone, Obituary, and Napalm Death. And
Dude, yes.
I was like, okay, this dude rocks. And we talked back and forth, but that was a few years ago. That was before the thought of this album even kind of
Oh,
this
for
album was
sure.
even a thought.
Yeah.
But we knew he had liked us every now and then. I mean, he follows us, so every now and then when we make a post, like that blue check mark will pop up, and it'll be like, "Oh, Jesse Leach liked a post or whatever," and so we wrote that song, and we had kind of restructured it. It's very verse, chorus, verse, but it's very catchy, but it's still Terminal Nation. It's not like, oh, we just changed stylistically everything
Right.
about the band. We've been playing, as I mentioned earlier, we played around with some synth and we were like this, we had this like hard breakdown or mosh part at the end. And I was like, this is a cool ending. And then, but we had this beautiful synth part written. And we were like, what if, and then we threw the synth. And then I was like, okay, I love synth, but a lot of bands rely on it as a crutch
Right.
to like either start a song, end a song. You don't really see a lot of bands like that get compared to us, I guess you could say. They do it kind of in the middle of a song as a bridge and like play the instrument, use it as they hit that sample and it's like a pre-recorded synth or
Right.
whatever. And I was like, what if we just made that like incorporated into a part of the song? They're
Like a
like, dude, this
main
song's fuck.
section.
Yes, yes.
Fuck
And then
yeah.
everyone's like, dude, this song's fucking 4 minutes, but you might be onto something here. And I was like, what's gonna territory if we do this? And it's like, well, we've always been known as a band who does like the unconventional. You know, we have songs that are fucking 15 seconds
Yeah.
long, and in this we have songs that are all 6 minutes. You know,
Holy.
almost.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was like, it's this. The beginning is so well. It's almost structured like a pop song for lack of a better word. Like it's got a verse chorus. It's real catchy, but it's still like grindy
Goes hard.
vocals, blast beats. Yeah, it like chuggy riffs, mosh parts, very confrontational lyrics. So it's not a pop. It's not, but it does. It did fit that. And I was like, wow, this is. We can write a song if we really try. And we were just debating on this part, and we were like, the synth part is sick. We have to have it. But if we played the synth out with the rest of the instruments, once it's done, it would sound massive.
Yes.
And then we did, and it sounded massive. And we were like, now comes another problem. Do we have vocals over this? And I did like higher pitched, almost like black metal y style
Yes.
vocals over it. And it sounded but we were like, what if we had like a real singer, like a motherfucker who could sing.
Okay.
And I was like, well, fuck. I don't know. It could be either good or bad. And we're like, do we know anybody that can sing? And we were like, well, he had messaged us before. And we're like, so we hit him up and he was like, hey guys, I appreciate you asking. Love you guys. Love the band, blah, blah, blah. Like, I would love to do it. But, I hate to disappoint you, but it would be like 2 or 3 months before I could do it. And I was like, oh,
Right.
okay. Because I was thinking that we were gonna get a no. It's cool that he responded. So we did it, and and then I realized right then and there when he sent us back, because we were like, dude, I don't know how I feel about this. This is so different. Some of us, and I was like, no, no, there's magic here.
Right.
So like, I keep some of my vocals there. So it's him kind of like, for lack of a better word, me and him kind of harmonizing with a
Dude.
two-time Grammy nominated
I
vocalist.
know. That's so sick.
and and he sent us like a PDF sheet of like how his vocals need to be mixed to like this dude is a
Wow.
professional musician in every facet.
All the way.
Um so when I said and I think we kind of described like do some melodic style vocals. In my opinion, melodic is like who is like carcass or like
Right.
the later era carcass or like hardcore perspective like your carry on or like your have heart or something like that. I was like, this is kind of ballady, so like make it melodic. So I was expecting screaming, and this dude just sings like a two-time Grammy nominated
Damn, dude.
uh stadium. And I was like, whoa. And I don't we were all kind of like, does this it's good, but does it work? And
Right.
we're like, let's go. Fuck it. We
Dude.
can make this work. We have something here. And so we kept some of my vocals in there to balance it. And then he was like, "What are your guys' thoughts?" We were like, "Well, we doing more screaming, but we kind of love this too." He was like, "I'll do screaming too." So then he dubs over his own stuff with his heavy, like his metalcore vocals or whatever, and it came out so good. I'm so happy with how it turned out.
Damn, so he not one like he went back for you guys to
Yeah,
redo.
he
That's
recorded a second
amazing.
part.
Holy
Yeah,
shit.
um he was like, hey, I'm pretty free the week that he did it. He's like, I'm pretty free, so if you need me to change anything, if I missed the mark on what you're thinking, let me know and I'll re-record because he has a studio in his house. And so he was like so open to like feedback, suggestions. I sent him my lyrics because he's like he wants to be able to sing about stuff that he only that he jives with. So I thought
Dude.
that might be a problem with him and being in such a big band. He was
Fuck
I'm
yeah.
all in. I don't need to change anything. So that was really cool for me to kind of talk like in terms of the overarching things. Like I said, we touched a little bit on war, a little bit about the powers that be kind of meddling with the education system
Yeah.
and what is a in schools and things like that. Also, just kind of overcoming adversity. And to kind of piggyback on the adversity one, we have a song called "Dying Alive," and it's kind of something that about both myself and Chase, our bass player, experienced. Um, and like I said, where the world just keeps moving
Hmm.
after you've experienced trauma or tragedy, and that might be one of the hardest parts about that experience is that like shit just keeps going. Where like he was like, oh, I still got bills to pay, and I'm laid up in a hospital. Take my kids to school tomorrow morning, and I got to have skin grafts all over, 20% of my body or
Right.
whatever. And so, and the lyrics I think are really good in that. At the end, it kind of culminates into death couldn't kill me. Not decide if dying is harder than the act of staying alive. Um, so it's just like living with kind of the guilt of like, should I have died then? If I
Right.
like would just kind of just coming to acceptance with you you live through this traumatic experience, and I think you're, for lack of a better word, blessed to keep going. But also,
At the
like
same time,
at the same
yeah,
time, like this is not this is like being alive now, like living through the residual effects is I mean, fuck, easier to just die in
Li-
the
yeah, truly.
circumstance.
That's I think that there's a term for that, right? Isn't that like survivor's guilt, kind of?
Survival's guilt, probably. Yeah, I think that's yeah, that's probably what it is. I know a lot of times it gets tied to um like if you're in a car wreck and somebody else dies and you don't or
Yes,
whatever,
yes,
and like so you're like, oh, it should have been me instead or something like that. So but yeah, I mean, this could be maybe classified as that. I'm not sure, but there is this is a thing. So
for
I know
sure.
it's something. But it's just weird to just keep like where your life is like severely impacted after a pretty wild traumatic event, to the point where it's like, I mean, would it have been better if I
Right.
just fucking croaked, you know?
Yeah.
So and like and when you go through so much shit, it's like, yeah, oh my god, it was traumatic it must have been traumatic to survive a tornado. I'm like, yo, I don't know if it was or not, because I've been so fucking worried about putting food on the table, getting my house rebuilt, I mean, because like I said, it's just ruined me financially. Like that. Like I had to hire an attorney to sue the insurance company to try to pay me what they fucking by law and contractually have to do. But what the reason why this insurance company is worth 131.2 billion, because they fuck people like this all the time. Almost 3,000 houses were leveled that day by a tornado, by the couple tornadoes that tore through Little Rock, and I'm probably 3,000 houses were affected. I'm probably one of less than are still fighting to get what they're owed. A lot of people are just like, I'll just take this bullshit check and like, make my house, fix it to be worse than what it was before. Um,
Jesus. Yeah.
and like a lot of people were taken advantage of. I mean, like some of the neighborhoods that were torn up in the tornado are seeing on the news an older lady who's like, "Hey, my husband died 10 years ago. I'm a widow in a 3 bedroom house. My kids are adults, so nobody lives. Just me that lives here. This house is very big for me, but this house is also worth $350,000, and it just got leveled to bricks, and it's been years, and it's just a pile of bricks now. And the insurance company said, "Hey, here's 45 grand. Have a good time.
Wow.
Enjoy." And like she's like, I don't even know that it's worth the if she's in her late 80s or something like that, if it's worth the stress to fight argue with them over
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll just get an apartment and live the rest of my life in an apartment with this money or whatever. And it's like, dude, that's fucking bleak
It
to hear.
is
That's
truly.
fucking bleak to hear. And so you know to like another song, Empire and Decay, which I think is like the song in the middle, very big, very heavy, one of the slower songs on the album, almost sludgy, doomy. But Empire and Decay, it's just like living in a world, whether you're I know categories of people who have different struggles and things like that. But at the end of the day, the biggest one, the most obvious one that I think gets glossed over is your class struggle.
Right.
Obviously there's different. There's inequalities in race, in gender, in sexual orientation, things like that. Obviously, there's those inequalities, but the biggest overarching one that kind of in envelopes all of those is class struggle, is the ruling
Absolutely.
class versus the working class, or the lower class. And Empire and Decay just talks about the United States being considered a world superpower, being um for many decades anyway, was viewed as like the focal point for entertainment, education, technology advancement, blah blah blah. In reality, it's not any of those things, or not, maybe not anymore.
Right.
And it's basically, and I've used this analogy before, but it's like the United States is like a third world country, but with a Gucci belt.
Basically, yeah.
We're wearing a Gucci back, So like, there's what gets the notoriety is like, oh, this invention, this company, this
Yes.
that record profits, economy, blah 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 blah. But in reality, I mean, we're out in the streets and like people protesting are getting the shit beaten out of them by not just but police who are in military gear
Mm-hmm.
or by the literal fucking military, by the National Guard,
Yep.
fucking shooting tear gas at their own citizens. We have people who can't afford, um, we talk about all these record profits, the stock market, the Dow Jones. Bro, fuck the Dow Jones. There's people who don't have a goddamn.
Really.
There's people who are eating out of fucking dumpsters. This is bullshit. This is the richest country in the history of mankind, the wealthiest power in the history of the goddamn world, to our knowledge. And and we have over a half a million people who are homeless, that, and that's what we can count.
Literally,
Um,
yes.
yeah, and like, people that are, um they may not be homeless, but they might be better off financially if they were, because rent is so high. Because owning a house, what's defined as middle class now, I think I had read before recently, is like a fucking $300,000 a year
Yeah.
salary is what would be considered middle class. Where like in the '70s, you could work at a grocery store and bag groceries and still have enough money to to own a house, put two or three kids through college,
Yep.
have insurance, have a savings account, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Be the
and you
normal
could be,
adult that they basically outlined for us.
yeah, correct. What would be considered like the middle class lifestyle, like the sitcom,
Yeah.
the Brady Bunch
Exactly.
lifestyle. Like, uh, you could in the '50s, '60s, '70s, even, you could do that working at a fucking fast food restaurant, and it's, you know, um, but that's not the case anymore. You like, we're so far removed, we're so fucked in every way. Like, in with the housing crisis, I mean, we had more, um,
Right. No,
because of,
I heard about that too. Like we have enough empty houses to house every homeless person and then some. You know.
yeah, and but it's like, yeah, but who makes money when you house homeless people?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so like this is the world that we live in now. And we have another song, if for those of you that, oh, this is a good segue. Are you familiar with the band Elysia? Like
Elysia,
that
I've
death,
I've heard
yeah.
of them. Yeah.
This is a deathcore band kind of in the mid 2000s, early 2000s. I'm not a deathcore guy.
It's
I
been a good
hate,
minute. I
yeah,
was
for
never
sure.
super into
They,
that either. But
but they were a band to me that was like an outlier, where they were more like it was before things got real polished, where it's almost like rough recordings. They recently did a reissue of their album, I think a 20-year anniversary reissue, where it's rougher recordings, like your deathcore bands that are, um have got,
era, basically.
yes,
Yeah.
early on, even that. The
Yeah.
late MySpace era is when like there was a lot of softer deathcore, like more polished
Yeah.
deathcore, like the Victory Records started in it when they kind of started meddling with things. But like there's bands like On Broken Wings, Elysia, like even like Despised Icon, which they kind of had a longer tenure into that more,
More.
um
Yeah.
into the as it evolved. But like, I don't know, deathcore written by dudes who might have a felony,
Right.
and the felony has nothing to do with underage children. Um, but yeah, no, this was just a harder. This is just when deathcore was like, I'm not a deathcore aficionado, but I can recognize that there was like a clear divide
For
of
sure.
like when things felt more legitimate. Like it was written by like hardcore dudes, it became written by dudes who were metalcore dudes, and
Yeah.
then they,
The
you know,
super
um,
skinny jeans Tom's wearing kind of scene kids.
right, yes. So
Yeah.
this was like camo cargo shorts,
Right.
deathcore.
Yes. Okay. There we go.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
terms of fashion,
Um,
right.
so almost like like slam adjacent. But
Okay.
I think Elysia is so much more than that. But anyway, so we got Zach from Elysia to do guest vocals on a
Dope.
called Spikes Under the Bridge, and it does talk about the homeless crisis in America, and a lot, mainly focusing on the architectural designs of your cities where they put like spikes under the bridge so
Yes.
no homeless people can sleep there.
Yeah.
Your benches that have like a dip so that it's two seats versus a flat bench so nobody can sleep
It's
on it.
fucking disgusting. It's
It's
completely
dude, it's
inhumane,
fucking
dude.
horrible.
It's gross. Fuck
Like
that.
it,
Yeah.
this is a nation that already has to deal with so much, and then to literally have to see what has kind of been reframed as
Yes.
like, oh, this is modern art. This is
Right.
a artistic bench. No, it's just a fucking bench that a human being can't lay down on.
Literally.
Um, let's not frame it into being like modern art piece. Fuck
Yeah.
you.
That's just
Um,
disgusting.
and so this song is called Spikes Under the Bridge. Um, and Zach was all about it. We asked him to do vocals, low key, like he hasn't sung in a band. No. He has like a black metal project now or whatever. But Elysia was a band that appealed to me because they talked about a lot of socio-political issues, xenophobia, homophobia, things like that.
Mm.
Where like as deathcore, like I said, evolved and got cheesy, became about, hey, let me kill my fucking ex girlfriend because she's a
Yes.
cunt or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so like, but this and hey, Alicia did have some of those kind of songs too. But again, that first album I think is was written when the dudes were like 16, 17.
Right.
And so like to have almost a 70 30, like maybe not the most uh not the nicest way to frame women in some of the
Right.
songs, but also to be like you can kind of see that this is an
They
album
have
that
a
was
bigger
written by
message.
kids.
Right.
Yeah, this was an album written by kids, a little bit of tongue in cheek, like gore stuff that is not it's not great when you look back on it. But then they also have songs that are against xenophobia and homophobia and stuff like that that nobody in deathcore was even touching. Nobody was touching that subject matter.
No, that's rad.
Um,
I think that I think that that's a good point because I feel like the messages that are there, you know, aside from the misogynistic touches, I feel like that might have been where they wanted to go, whereas the other stuff kind of been more of like an influence from other bands or genres, you know, because they're in that scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so you can tell that, like, hey, maybe these guys are pulling from a different well than some of the other
Right.
deathcore bands that would follow suit. And I think I know that the band ended up breaking up because they got like mega popular off of a self-released record, and then I heard that there was like they could go one of two routes. Like they kind of got more converging in their sound, so it's like they could go with like Death Wish, they could go with Ferret Records, and I think they put out a an album that would have crushed on Ferret Rec or on Death Wish, but they went with Ferret Records, and you know, I maybe it was just more. They put out an album in like 2007 called Lion of Judas, and I think it's fucking fantastic. But it showed, but a lot of people rejected it because they wanted like the deathcore
Oh,
breakdowns and
for
stuff like
sure.
that.
Yeah.
Of the first album, Masochist, which in my opinion, I think that's a undeniable classic. If there, it's hard for me to say that a deathcore album is classic, but if there is one, it's Masochist. And so yeah, so it was cool to have him on there because that first Elysia album kind of really influenced me as a kid and like into seeing like, hey, there's music like this, but with like a message that's more rooted in punk.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that was very cool. And you know that I mean we do have another song similar to Holocene Extinction called Immolation of Mother Earth, parentheses of Mother Earth,
Damn.
just talking about the planet burning up, another burning forest, another poison stream. um you know, we can't like we're taking the world the human race or corporations, however you want to frame it, has kind of taken this planet hostage and is slowly for immediate gratification.
Literally, yes.
Um, and that was pretty much the major theme of Holocene Extinction. This kind of just builds on that. Um, yeah, and then I mean, we have another song that's against anti, like Christian zealots. Your Christians that infringe upon the existence of other people.
Yes.
That one features Dwid from Integrity.
Fucking
Um,
wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah, and so like overall, some of them I glossed over. I mean, we have a song called "Bullet for a Stone," which takes it very apropos right now. It was written from the perspective of being in America and seeing two American influences. You have your National Guard and you have the IDF in Israel,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they share a playbook, and that playbook is define what is considered lethal force. And so children will see children trying to cross the border, they'll see the border patrol there or and throw a rock at them, and then they fire back with tear
Right.
gas because they say, oh, well, if a rock is thrown at us, that's because a rock could kill even if it's something super tiny.
Jesus.
um and so they and basically the IDF, Israel was like, oh, that rock, that this Trump thing of reframing what is considered lethal force. Let's do. And so you get Palestinian children who would throw a rock at a tank
Hmm.
and just be fucking blown to bits.
Yeah.
When a rock is not gonna, obviously you don't need any sort of expert analysis to tell you that a rock versus a tank
Literally.
is not equal. So like to have a child's body riddled with a rock at at a at a tank is pretty fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
And that playbook came from how migrants from the southern border were being treated. And the
Jeez.
IDF was like, yo, let's use that, but just, because these rocks at us, if we just
Yeah.
define throwing a rock as lethal force, we can fucking kill them, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so that's one of the more deeper ones, but yeah, I mean I think we kind of covered most of the subject matter, which has its ranges. But overall, I think it's a song about overcoming adversity, point out what's right and what's wrong. If you can't stand up for yourself, who else will? But at the same time, there's people who don't stand up for themselves, and sometimes for the betterment of society, you have to be that person. But you can't always expect that person to come along for you either.
True.
So it's like it's a balancing act.
Yeah, no, honestly, that's what I stay with y'all for, those fucking badass messages of like, hey, we're gonna, if nobody else is gonna take it, we're gonna fucking take that, and
Hell
like
yeah, appreciate that.
legit, no, like it's been a driving force for me, throughout stuff. It's like,
Yeah, no doubt.
and like throughout my beginnings of like trying to get my band stuff to other blogs or to reviewers or magazines or what have you, like I decided to just do it myself, right? Like
Why the
nobody
fuck not?
else,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's only been I've decided sharing it with other people too. So
Yep. Because if you don't give a shit about the stuff that you're doing, how can you expect other people to?
exactly,
And
yeah,
um and like there's resources out there, but those resources may not necessarily give you the time of day for XYZ reason.
yep,
Know that you have the initiative. Maybe those resources will be available to you down the line. Maybe they won't. Who fucking knows? If you can push your own shit yourself, do it. Do
hell
it.
yeah,
If you have a door open up along the way that recognizes your efforts and says, "Hey, let me give you a hand with that," and it works out, cool. That's cool. Without having to compromise your morals or your integrity,
hmm,
and opportunity opens up, fucking go for it. But yeah, it's like you we said earlier, I literally emailed you the demo and I was like, hey,
yeah.
I like your blog, check this out, let me know what you think or something like that. And so I we did 2014, that was with had a publicist and journalists and things like that. It was me sitting at my computer just like grinding out emails and sending the songs out to people, seeing if, hey, could you help me afford to do a 7 inch, hey, could you whatever. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you'll never know. You never know unless you fucking go for it. Who cares?
Literally, yeah. Then you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yes. Michael
1,000%.
Scott,
Yeah.
smart man. Yeah.
1,000%, man. So yeah, no. If we could get into your place in the Little Rock scene and how you helped build it up quite a bit, because I remember when Vino's stage had collapsed. I remember following that through y'all, and
Oh yeah, yeah. Wow.
yeah, and I remember you building a bill for it at if I remember correctly, it was at a different venue to put on
No,
a
it
benefit
was
show.
actually at Vino's. It
Oh, it
was at
was at
Vino's.
Vino's.
Yes,
Holy
yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah. We knew that the stage had kind of been buckling for some time, and Vino's is a classic venue in Little Rock. I'm because Vino's is a staple. You name it, they've probably played there. Everything from damn, like everybody from Marauder to the Misfits to Earth Crisis to Fallout Boy to AFI to
No.
Story to like it all the broadest spectrum you can imagine,
Wow.
from like big name bands to whatever. There's a ton that I'm missing. Jawbreaker, Fugazi, um, bands like that have played there. Trying to name from Death play there. I don't. There's a like even like noise acts like Cock and Ball Torture
Dude,
has
that's
played
wild.
there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it's a Little Rock staple. And it was just in bad shape. You make the argument maybe it's still it's I don't know, like a lot of bands were like it's all that we had though. Like it's the only place in Little Rock where you don't have to like know somebody to be able to book there. Where you can book I've done it many a times and some people fucking probably hated me for it, but where you can book a show that and like the employees are like, God damn, this is a waste of time
Right.
tonight. But I booked a band that I wanted to see and was able to fucking put some gas in their tank, and they ate pizza for free and had a good time. And like the barrier of entry to book a show at Vino's is almost nothing. So if you're, because literally I was a high school like at school when smartphone before smartphones
Right.
were like a regular thing. I'd be like on my BlackBerry and I got see email from like Andy Rice or something like that, and it was like, hey, I need a show for Rotting Out or something, and I'll be like, okay, Vino's. Like I know that the Vino's could book this only venue in town that will let me book shows where where people can fucking jump off the stage, where people can spin kick, where people can
Mosh
circle
pit or
pit, and
whatever.
it's not like have a good time, and I don't have to worry about losing money for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. um I'll cover the guarantee, like it shows a bust where the band leaves with what they were expecting,
Yes.
but Vino's just was the most accessible spot in terms of ADA accessibility for people with disabilities, where they didn't have the fucking light show going on for no goddamn reason.
Right.
They didn't they had to climb upstairs to get there. None of that bullshit was there. It was just like and they would just book like almost anybody can book a show at Vino's. To this day, you can send an email to the Vino's account and they will probably set you up with a show. So
Damn.
like that, if that's the only vestige that we have in town. Oh, and it's all ages as well.
There we go.
That's a
Yeah.
big part.
Absolutely
And
is.
because Whitewater Tavern is also a super important part of the Little Rock music scene, but predominantly because of they have full liquor bar. Like they got to go through a lot of hoops to book anything that's all age. But the bar is where they make their money. So Vino's is also a restaurant, so I think that's where they make their money. So like I can book shows that kind of flop, which has been a long time since I booked like a true flop show. I'll be honest with you, because the scene is very strong right now. But we saw a spot where the stage was collapsing. Some friends of mine talked about it on a local podcast here, and it was overheard by some of the staff. And they're like, "Yo, if you want to do that, if you want to do a benefit show and like rebuild the stage, like." We're down for it. And I was like, all right, how do we make this work? And so we did a multi-genre show. Like there's pop punk bands, shoegaze bands. We had headlined, and this years before his wreck, but he broke his hand and was in a cast and couldn't play bass.
Wow.
And so we had two vocalists. We did like the back and forth thing. So it was a very unique show. So we played with only one guitar, and like it was both of us doing vocals together.
That's pretty
Um,
dope. Not gonna lie.
it was really ignorant. And like for this to plan this show, because we knew it was going to be one of the biggest shows we've ever played, just because the message behind it,
Yeah,
and then also
community.
like playing with some bigger bands that are of different style. Like, so I ended up like getting all my shop class and building like guillotines
Dude.
to put
Oh
on the
yes,
stage.
I did see that.
And I built those specifically for the show. I like looked online on how to build them. They're like, here's how to build a real one,
No
and I
way.
started it, and I was like, holy fuck, this I'm in way over my head. I'm not a dude. I'm not a craftsman. I'm not a fucking woodsmith, and I was like, I'm fucked. So I had to like kind of improvise and build like one that was a little more simpler than I cut all the wood. And I was like, oh holy fuck, I'm not gonna be able to have one that like actually worked and everything,
Right, and
and
drops
like
and
because I
stuff.
wanted to build. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like I'm not really gonna chop someone's head off. And to be fair, there's a lot of people coming on stage messing with it. Somebody might end up
Oh
getting their fucking
yeah.
arm chopped off
True.
or their head chopped off. So maybe I'll just build one that's like not in functioning. We'll just it's more symbolic than anything else.
There you go.
But yeah, so I ended up building that for that show. We just wanted to make it as special as we could because we were asked to play last because we were the heaviest band on the show. But there was you could argue that the bands before us were significantly, or at least one or two of them were much had a much bigger audience. Um, keep a crowd that's going to immediately reject it. Well, and this is a very diverse crowd from a belief standpoint. It's just
Ah,
people that
yeah.
are like, I'm here to support music. So like we might turn them they whether they fucking like the message or the music or not, keep their attention.
For sure.
And so like we had the guillotines, we had a whole bunch I mean we went fucking all out for this. And it was a good time. But yeah, Vino's is a staple. I've been booking there, like I said, since I was a kid. Um there was a few year span where Vino's stopped booking shows. It was like you do you book shows?
I have booked a few shows in my day. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a
Okay.
normal thing that I do, but I have.
Sure, sure. So I book a lot of shows myself, and Evan is probably the main guy, but he helps me put on Banging the Rock Fest.
Hmm.
And so me and him together, although we kind of came from like hour apart, ended up at some point moving to Little Rock together. We were both outside of Little Rock, and so I booked shows at like the park where I would just call the city and get like an ordinance to have a gazebo,
Damn,
and
yeah.
then I like booked rotting out at a park in Benton, in a town of 27,000 people. Yeah, it is early on a rotting out and creatures show at a park. Um, because we just had no like other than Vino's, and then Vino stopped doing shows for a while. I think because there was a kind of a big fight. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I heard some Nazis showed up and were like kind of pushing like, and year old metalcore kids maybe allegedly fucking beat the ever living fuck out of out of these
Damn.
kids. I don't know anything about that or
No,
whatever, but
wow.
if that's what happened, that's pretty crazy. But who knows, but who's to say?
Right.
But like some of the shows were getting a little bit I think they viewed it as this isn't a worthwhile venture
Ah,
anymore, and so they Beano's kind of closed the door on the ideas of having shows, and they tried to kind of morph into like a sports bar for a little bit and have like couches, tables or something for a few years, and those were kind of I want to say those were bleak years, but truthfully that's when like innovation happens. So people were booking generator shows in the woods. People
yes.
were doing house shows. People were doing like me. I was booking shows at the park. I like there was a for a little bit. His dad traveled and was very very wealthy, and he was like, "Why don't you just do a show at my house?" And we're like, "Okay, cool." So we set up. We had his address. We showed up, and this dude lives in like a fucking mansion, and in like a small close quarters neighborhood. And he was like, "Well, it has to be outside." And I was like,
Yeah.
pool next to a pool, whatever. And there's like people moshing and stuff, and like all the neighbors are fucking livid. Because it's during the day too, and it just like those years. While some people say, "Wow, the scene was bleak," in my juice, I was playing shows in basements, in the fucking woods,
Mm-hmm.
in generate whatever you name it. To me, that wasn't bleak. Now, some of the turnouts were fucking maybe I don't know. I wasn't used to playing shows to we just played Decibel Metal and Beer Fest to like 2,000 people.
Right.
I was not used to it at that point. I was grateful if 5 people, if the other bands watched this, I was like,
Absolutely.
this is sick. And so I didn't know any better, dude. I'm just having a good time. People were like, man, these shows fucking suck. Nobody's at them. I'm like, dude, like 20 people just fucking saw
Yeah, dude,
us. What do you mean?
exactly.
Like, this is sick. So I was just enjoying it, and it kind of evolved into what it is now, where we have uh, when Evan and myself and the rest of the Bang and the Rock team, we're booking like shows that are like we get a sellout show once or twice a month,
Yeah.
um, which is and then with Bang and the Rock we do that once a year, and I mean people fly in from all over the world. The people have flown in from all over the world to Little Rock, Arkansas
Right.
for which is crazy. I mean, I picked up Dwid from Integrity from the airport. Or not, no, I didn't pick him up from the airport, but I picked, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm still getting used to the time change because I forget that he lives in like Germany or something." And he flew into Little Rock, Arkansas to fucking play
Damn,
one
dude.
show.
That's
Um,
awesome. Holy
yeah,
shit.
and that's where we kind of bonded, and he was like, "So what's Terminal Nation up to?" I was like, "Whoa, you know about
Yeah.
my band?" And I was like, "We're actually writing an album." And I mentioned maybe this song Todd Jones is doing guest vocals on. He's like, "Well, I don't want to impose, but if you ever, I know you said that like you've been a lifelong or a long time fan of Integrity and help. Like, I don't want to impose, but if you would like for me to be on the album, I would be honored." And I was like, "Whoa, did the fucking? I didn't ask the singer.
Yeah,
I didn't
dude.
ask Tweet from Integrity. He asked me. What's going on here?"
That's
Um,
incredible. Holy shit.
yeah, yeah.
So then I guess that could bring us to the how Bane and the Rock got started, you know? So was it your idea at the time or did somebody bring it to you?
It was kind of a collaborative idea that a lot of some of the homies here in town had, where it's like, yo, we see these big festivals kind of happening all over the country, but Little Rock's just too small to ever do something like that. We've tried festivals before where we've in bands and stuff like that, and it's always a risky undertaking. But kind of coming out of COVID, like lockdown and stuff, and I think this is you could probably attest to this because it seems like it's a common story in a lot of places where there was a young crop who were doing virtual schooling who did or aka not going to school, missing out on that aspect of things, looking online and seeing like what was what like they had more free time on their hands. Let's just say
Yeah.
they would see Hate 5 6 videos, they would see videos of like these giant, whether it was death metal or like grindcore or hardcore or street punk or whatever, like they were like, yo, when if we ever get out of this COVID shit,
Hmm.
I'm gonna this is I don't know what this shit is about, but I'm in.
Damn.
And so there's a lot of that energy going on, where there's kids who might have, if they were exposed to it, would have loved to start going to shows at 16, 17, 18. But those were the years that shows were, 17, 18, shows weren't happening. And years of like, I want to be a part of this. And all of a sudden they're like, I'm in. And so, there's a huge uptick in new faces, young faces. In Arkansas, for the longest time, the new showgoer was like some dude who's like 23 in college or whatever.
Wow.
And it was like, yeah, a long time we just didn't have, and I'm painting with a broad brush. There was definitely younger kids coming to shows, but like when I was going to shows, I started going to shows at like 13,
Yes.
14 years old, and there was a lot of other people at, like, I wasn't like, oh, this is weird. kid hearing a bunch of grown 30-year-old men. No, it was just like everybody was that age
Right.
at shows.
1,000%. Yeah.
And then that kind of, I don't know if like, it's a testament to like maybe bands not being as good as they were in the. That's kind of an old man take. I'm not sure what the rationale was, but it did seem like, at least here locally, I can't speak for every place. There was a drop off in like young attendance, and maybe it was because hey, Vino's was the only all ages place, and that shut down, and the young kids weren't plugged in or didn't want to go to a house that looked like go to a fucking hey, let's go see some fucking punk rock bands in the woods,
Yeah.
um, or whatever, uh, or like some of those Jungle Juice shows, like a younger kid might have went and was like, "Yo, fuck this," because there was bottles being thrown,
Right.
chairs being thrown, and they're like, this fuck this. I'll just go listen to goddamn 3 Days Grace or whatever.
Right.
This is fuck
Just
this bullshit.
put on my
Um,
headphones and just vibe.
yeah. Now, if I was a kid, I was always kind of like I loved power violence punk, like more punk leaning stuff. That was always my thing. Grindcore, music. It was more grindcore leaning. I did have appreciation for like hardcore. I did, or like the newer age of hardcore, whatever
Right.
your heavy metallic hardcore. I did have an appreciation for that. I did have appreciation for death metal, but I've always been like the dude who was in like the faster stuff, the dirtier stuff, the grimier stuff, and could definitely see like like what was happening in Little Rock not clicking with people or whatever. And there wasn't a whole lot to choose from, and so you might just go to a show and be like, yo, this sucks, fuck this. And because we're such a small city that like a lot of these scenes, there's a lot of cross pollination. There's not a
Right.
it, we don't have like a oi punk scene and a street punk scene and a hardcore punk scene
Mm-hmm.
and a youth crew scene and a whatever and a ska scene. No, it's just like, or like, we would have bands like Paul Bearer and Terminal Nation and stuff like would have to play shows because it was just heavy music or underground music, whatever. Um, but coming out of COVID now, we almost have a big enough like pocket of people in that are into this style, like into underground music, that we can almost have our own. Do think that would be regressive if we kind of fell back to it. And there's people that only go to strictly hardcore shows. There's people that
Right.
only go to strictly death metal shows. But there's a lot of people that go to all of that. Just because it's a small city, and you take what you get, you take what you get.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a teenager, I would see in the same week I'd see Goat Whore, um, like flogging Molly, um, like 18 Visions. I
Dude,
remember this week specifically.
that's a throwback.
Hawthorne Heights,
Okay.
um, and fuck, Trap Them in Trash Talk. And I want to say it was like Trash Talk's first tour ever. And
Yes.
I want to say these 5 shows all happened in the same week at the same venue at Vino's.
That's
Um,
wild.
yeah, and that was when the scene was real, real hot. That was before I was even in a band. Blah blah blah. But small cities, they can only historically they can only maintain that energy for so long. And then people start to get spoiled and they drop off and whatever. But we're hoping with Banging the Rock we can kind of change that narrative where we bring it. We told ourselves two things: we're gonna book the bands that we want to see, but we're also it's not about us because we're not going to be booking shows forever. Like the young generation has to come and take this fucking torch because in the next 2 3 years, I want the kids who are 17, 18, 19 now starting bands, learning about hardcore, various forms of extreme music to be like, yo, I'm the head booker in
Yes.
Little Rock. I book all the big shows, all the big metal shows or all the big hardcore shows or the big punk shows or whatever. I want those kids to fucking take that torch from me because I'm 34 now. And if a fucking 34-year-old dude was hanging out, I'd be like, who the fuck is this old ass man? And things have changed like a lot. Like it's normal to see guys in their 30s at
Yeah,
shows. And that
absolutely.
it's fine. But I should not have to be in Evans, not younger than me. Um, the core group of Banging the Rock, Reed, he's maybe 1 year older than me. Ted and Evan, I think, are close to the same age, so 3 or 4 years younger than me, maybe.
Okay.
Um, and so I mean, everyone's in their 30s, and so like, wouldn't it be cool if Banging the Rock was ran by people who were in their fucking who were 19, 20?
Dude.
Maybe not.
I mean, if
Like
they were brought
like
up,
the
then
energy,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Like,
the energy is cool. I think we bring a lot of knowledge from like our fails of booking shows from our we have we have a wealth of knowledge in that, how to talk to agents, list of contacts, how to negotiate deals where you're not getting fucked,
right.
whatever. But I'm ready to fucking teach somebody else to do it. Like it's time. Hardcore punk has always been like a youth centric
Absolutely.
movement, and now we're starting to get, so there's bands like Zashed in here in the Central Arkansas. There's bands like Masinko. There's a band called Little Rock Massacre that plays punk shows, and like it's cool. I think those Little Rock Massacre kids are like in high school, and they're
Damn.
playing like Misfits, like crossover thrash, like big
That's
four crossover thrash.
that just sounds
It
fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's fucking fun, and like they're having a good time. Like, but I know people that are in their fucking 30s that hate being in a band, and like it's like, yo, if this isn't fun for you, why the fuck are you here? Like, if you're not having a good time for you in any way, why the fuck are you doing this?
Yep, there's that
Um,
shitty gatekeeper mentality, right?
for sure. Where it's like, I
Yeah.
don't want somebody to take this over.
Exactly.
I do want somebody to take this over. Terminal Nation can't be like the torch bearing band in Little Rock forever.
Right.
I mean, we're fucking 10 years old, and we get recognition that, maybe you could make the argument, if we were from a bigger city, we would have gotten this recognition years ago. Maybe not. Who knows? But uh, I mean, I think everything that every bit of successes, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
I'm not trying. I don't want to come off as bragging, but like we have done some things that I did not think that would be possible for us. We're not the biggest band in the world, but we've had some cool things happen to us that I'm very appreciative of. But like, we can't be the only band in Little Rock. We were the only band
Right.
for years, doing this style of music,
Hmm.
and so we'd have to play deathcore shows, we'd have to play sludge shows, we'd have to play, and it was just all about like, hey, this is what we're doing. If you fuck with it, cool. If you don't, that's cool too. But being like open to that, the younger generation of kids, them not having to like the new generation of kids not having to deal with a lot of the gatekeepy shit that I had to deal with, like
Right.
coming up, where it's like, oh, you're in this band. I mean, like, music's not for me, but it's cool. Like, it's cool that you guys are getting out and doing it, and I'm sure there was people that thought that about me.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
the fact that like we want to embrace them. So, like I said, we want to book bands that we want to book, but we also want to book bands that the younger kids want to see here. And
Absolutely.
so I think we find a very good balance there in doing that. I mean, last year's lineup we had kind of fucking came down to the needle, but we had like Terror, Harm's Way, God's Hate, and then like Skeletal Remains, Judiciary, Integrity, All Out War, 25-year reunion for those who were crucified.
Damn.
Um, it was pretty fucking Gates to Hell, which is now a huge band. It was pretty remarkable what we were able to accomplish last year.
Right.
This year we're building out a pretty fucking awesome lineup. There's a very, very strong punk scene here that does, again, all these scenes,
Hmm.
but we're trying to bridge those gaps together so that like Bang in the Rock, I want to sell, and for these bands flying in, we have no choice. For us to not lose our ass, we have to make the tickets $100. It is what it is when you're flying in bands from all over the country, and there's a little bit of mainstreamism.
For
The
sure.
hardcore is closer to the mainstream now than it ever has been in my lifetime.
Yes.
You could argue that well, it creeped up into that in the 80s, or there was parts of the 90s that had that, even early 2000s. But I think now in my lifetime, it's closer to the mainstream than I've ever seen it. I can't speak to before I was going to shows, but but it's and because of that, there's a lot of bands that have agents that also book for like stadium arena rock bands. Um,
Oh,
and so those agents will be like, hey, this band needs a fly out plus meals. Okay, so far so good. Like I get it. Like I don't want a band to pay
right.
to come out to play our show. Like I understand, it's got to make sense. Plus the price of a fucking, used pre. Whoa, 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 whoa. So like we're going into like territory of what my parents paid for a house in the fucking 90s.
Damn.
Yeah, well, the cost of like a used trailer in a trailer park. Like, we're talking house money. We're talking fucking BMW money. And I'm like, yo, fuck, no, fuck this.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of agents, managers, red tape on a lot of bands, and it's no disrespect on those
Right.
bands.
No,
By all
absolutely.
means, like if you're not compromising your sound or selling out or fuck it, even if you are, if you're expanding, whatever. Like nothing fills my heart more playing underground music uncompromised the way they want to and being able to pay their fucking bills with it.
Literally.
That's
Yes.
beautiful.
That's the
That's
dream. It's
beautiful.
literally
Whether
the dream, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Because what? Oh, this guy's a fucking sellout because he makes money playing his music. Oh, okay, well, what the fuck do you want from him to go work at goddamn McDonald's and work for a major corp? He's his own fucking boss playing in a band and happens to pack out rooms.
Yeah,
Um,
literally.
so that like because I know a lot of people will hate on Knock Loose and stuff like that, and that's not my cup of tea, but they're doing something that you is undeniably fucking remarkable.
Yeah.
That's yeah. I mean, I'm assuming I'm not in anyone's checkbook, but that's their fucking full time job. I don't think the guys in Knock Loose when they come back from tour are going to work at the goddamn yogurt store or whatever,
Yeah.
the frozen yogurt store. So like, that's not radio music.
No.
You can like it, you can dislike it, whatever. I'm not here to comment on that. Those guys are my friends. Um, I think their music. I think when you see them live, for people that dismiss them as just a metalcore band or whatever, you can when you see them live, reason why this band is bigger than all the other bands
Yeah.
that are their contemporaries or want to sound like them or whatever. But all that to say that booking shows is way more expensive than it used to be. So you have to have a strong scene because there's some red haven't experienced when I was booking shows 10 years ago
Hmm.
where it's like, oh, this band needs to fly out, and I was like, yo, this band fucking couldn't bring 50 people to the show and you want me to put them on an airplane.
Right.
I get that. I don't want any band to lose money, but like
At the
it's got to
same
make sense
time.
both ways. I'm not a
Yes.
fucking corporation. So I'm not. I don't. There's no Live Nation venues in Arkansas that are gonna bail me out or anything like that.
Hmm.
So like, if I fucking lose money on a show, it comes out of my fucking
Yeah.
pocket. And so there's been a little bit different, a different balancing act. So there's pros and cons in the post-COVID world about booking a fest. Fans asked for more than maybe what they would have asked in 2019, but the turnouts are going to be much bigger. And so we're just trying to keep a lot of variety, book bands that we love, and we're on year three. This year is the lineup that I'm most excited about, and it's that are it's hard to top Terror, God's Hate, All Out War, and Integrity
Right.
in like the metallic hardcore world. It doesn't get much bigger than that. But we're branching out in ways where we're like booking bigger punk bands, booking bigger booking,
Yes.
so and we're still giving the people that want like the fucking spin kick hardcore, like they're still getting their itch scratched
The
or
ninjas
whatever.
in the pit,
Uh,
right?
Totally, totally, totally. And I'm all about that shit. So
Hell
like
yeah.
this is not me throwing shade
Right.
because I mean some people view my band as that. Some people view too hardcore for the death metal kids. We're too death metal for the hardcore kids. When we were first starting out, we were too punk for the hardcore kids. We're
Yep.
too hardcore for the punk kids. It's just a never-ending fucking cycle. But
Right.
that's the fucking problem of being a band that kind of takes chances and deviates from like a formula, a safe Um,
Totally.
but yeah, Banging the Rock is looking good this year. It's a 4-person team. We all have our input. We all play our role.
Damn.
We just kind of collaboratively use our contacts to in the relationships that we built, and we wanted something where we treated bands very, so that when they're like, because I want them to come to Little Rock with the expectation of this scene's small, probably this show probably fucking sucks. They gave us a pretty good offer though, so we couldn't really say no. Like the first few years, we knew we had to throw out kind of some stupid
Oh, I'm
offers
sure. Yeah.
to convince people to come,
Yes.
but that once word gets out there that this place fucking rocks, we know we have to do a lot less convincing now. Now, gigantic bands will hit us up and say, "How do we get on for next year?"
Damn.
Um,
Okay.
and so like we're in a very good we're positioned for for the future, and I'm hopeful that it continues to grow. Maybe we bring some new younger people on board. Like myself and Evan are good with the financials and the book and the laying out the land, and stuff like that. But we've been doing it for a long time, so it would be cool if we or another fest came along, like, and just let the youth build on them, and then that next gen to prepare that next generation, and then just keep growing this music
Right.
scene. I'm hopeful that this is the closest I've ever seen to like something that's continuously starting to build,
Yeah.
and not something that like spikes and then tapers
Yeah,
off.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, 3 years strong. It seems like people are already going to buy the ticket blindly for
Right.
this year. So that's a good sign. They don't even
Absolutely.
know what we booked. They just trust us as tastemakers that we're going to bring good stuff. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
No, and honestly, for the amount of bands that y'all have, $100 really is a steal team of like fests,
Oh,
like
when I say
legitimately.
yes, I agree. When I say that there is very little margin for error, it ain't after the fest. It's not like we're taking fucking hundreds of
Right.
dollars and throwing them into the air and fucking swimming in cash. We're like counting pennies at the end of night two to make sure that everyone got what they were promised. I mean, it's not that bleak, but
Right.
it's we have to make it affordable because this is a new younger generation of kids that are used to, and the shows they're used to are $15-$20, $100.
True.
So
Yes.
there's that, and then, but also we got to make sure we don't lose money either. So it's all about in everything in life. There's a balance. So booking shows is no different.
Right. No, and I think y'all have the right roots and the right mentality moving forward. I think that you guys are doing everything about the future generations and by building it up like that. Like honestly, I don't think I've seen any other um, scene for, well, for lack of a better term, any kind of like picture of a scene look as optimistic as it does
That's
seemingly,
cool.
so
That's
legitimately
awesome to
this
hear.
from back in California, it was okay. So I come from the desert scene in Palm Springs, like
Yeah.
where like
Okay.
Caius is from, and like Eagles of Death Metal and stuff like
Oh
that.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so like they had their time, in the desert generator shows and stuff, and then I went in the day, and then we had backyard shows. We had a couple of dingy dive bars and what have you, but we never had like a full on venue to book shows at. Like it was all just DIY underground shit too. But the one thing that we did have was Coach in the backyard, right? So that was kind of more of a hindrance than anything because the certain bands,
Sure.
like literally, even to this day, like because Coachella Fest is happening currently. Like it's when like the week two is gonna happen this next weekend, and like it's kind of a bummer because local bands like on smaller stages and stuff, but usually it's like
I've seen this.
one. Yeah, it's like usually one or two bands. And then if there's any shows that are going on around like even like a radius of like 5 cities around, like it's basically in like the bands that play Coachella can't, like they have these
Yeah.
super
Sure.
strict contracts. So that's basically Coachella Fest time is like really great for the local economy or what have you, but it's terrible for like local music and art shit because everybody just wants to go see the bands or they just want to go to the pool or what have you, but
Yeah. Everyone's there to fucking
Exactly.
celebrities.
Yeah.
And I mean, no, that's dismissive. I think there's people there that are there for music,
Oh, for
but
sure.
but
The vast
but like
majority of them, you know.
yes, but like also they're not there to, hey, let me see who the fucking
Local punk bands
the
are.
local band, the local punk band that opened fucking
Exactly.
tent of the 50 capacity tent.
At like ten
Um,
thirty in the fucking morning.
yeah, yeah. Um, so it's almost like they would have been better off just playing their own show than
Yeah.
actually playing Coachella, with the exception of it looks good on a resume, for them to be like, hey, we played Coachella, but that's
Exactly.
about that's
Yep, pretty much. No, so I think the way that y'all are handling Banging the Rock is by far and away the closest grassroots huge music festival that you
thank
can,
you, thank you.
truly.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Because we debated, like, the first year, we were like, want any outsider money. Fuck that.
Right.
And then it's like,
Yeah,
a
that's
sponsor would have
insane.
helped with some of these expenses that, like, we barely scathed by through or whatever. Or that, like, this would have been easier to do if we had a little bit of sponsors. But who's going to fucking sponsor a fucking death metal
A
hardcore punk
brand new
fest?
one too,
Um,
you know?
for sure. In Little Rock, in a city that people don't even fucking know exists. I mean, we were very lucky in getting like PBR to just give us a little bit last year
Hmm.
to give us merch and stuff. I was like, yo, that was cool, but I don't think they would have batted an eye at it had it had we have not had a lineup that was just undeniably like awesome.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, for things to grow, you sometimes you have to take a little bit of chances. We didn't. Obviously, I'm not like, hey, let's get Pfizer as a sponsor, Raytheon or
Right.
whatever. But like, I mean, we were selling PBR in the venue. It only fucking makes sense
No, absolutely.
to take what they're willing to give us.
Hmm.
So. I know some people are dismissive of their involvement in hardcore, and I get it. Like I remember I was there for the Scion debates 10 years.
Right, I forgot about
I'm not.
that.
Yeah, but like if a band is like, hey, Scion just paid for to put out our record and paid us like a insane amount of money to go
Right.
on a fucking tour. Um, what do you want that person to be like? No, we're good, man. We're good. And I applaud the person that can say that, but I get it. Bills have to be paid. Like
Yes,
if
exactly.
and here's the thing, like that whole Scion thing was intended to like appeal to younger niche audiences, where Toyota had a base model that was more like culturally cool.
Right.
And did those Scion Fests where they were booking like Ringworm, Worm Rot, the Acacia Strain, Napalm Death,
Yeah,
Magruder
dude.
Grind, did those fests sell one car? I would fucking argue probably not. Car on dealership. I don't think anybody left there and said, I'm going to the Scion dealership tomorrow and buying a fucking Scion box car. Now, I'm sure people bought one used or whatever. Like I've had friends that all bought, or friends that have had used Scions, but it wasn't because they were influenced by attending a free festival
Right.
to see, like,
Magruder Grinder.
Carcass. And yeah, yeah.
Dude, that's so
Uh,
crazy. I remember when Magruder Grinder was getting a lot of shit for that too. They called him like Scion Core and shit.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, fuck, I don't know. I get it. I do
Right.
get the mindset, but also like,
At the end of the day, like it doesn't really fucking matter. Like if smaller bands like that are getting that kind of boost and that kind of recognition, like sometimes you just kind of have to swallow your pride, you know.
yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it would be like a conversation to have. Like if I was put in that position, dude, I don't know. It's hard to say. I um what decision do you make? If it's like, oh hey, my fucking house just got destroyed by a fucking tornado. We're upside down on the budget of our record.
Hmm.
Um, our guitars were just stolen in the van. This is hypothetical, but
Right.
like I just broke my hand, so I can't work my actual job. Um, and then a corporation or a company comes along and is like, "Hey, we fuck with your music and we want to platform your music, and we're not asking you to fucking stop writing about this and that or to change your
Yes.
sound." But like, would you? our logo on a flyer, and here's X amount of money that it may not be life changing money, but it's money that can get you to skate vibe.
Yeah,
I would, it would be something to ponder on.
absolutely.
Again, and to look at where the money's coming from too. If it's like, hey, this company donates to fucking anti
Yeah,
LGBTQ
right.
organizations. I'm good on your money. But it's if it's there and somebody's willing to give it to you, and it doesn't completely. It would almost be hypocritical for us to say fuck PBR, we're not taking your money, and still sell
Fucking
you. Like,
true. That's a
what
good
sense does
point.
that make? What
Yeah.
sense does that make? So we are open to the idea of sponsors, but we're very selective. I'll just
Mm-hmm.
say so.
No.
Um,
Yeah, completely valid. Not like you're gonna want fucking his money, right? Like.
right. Totally, totally. Funny thing is, I talked to a director locally, and this was been like in Midwest hardcore at least, because these were not in every city. Now I think they've expanded more. I talked to an executive, Raisin Canes,
What? Really?
about sponsoring Banging the Rock last year, and
Wild.
it just ended up being like, oh well, we could help out a little bit with like catering for the bands, which is good,
Yeah.
but at that point, it's like, is it worth us putting their name on the flyer for
Right.
just X? Like, I think our pitch to sponsors is like, we would like for you to pay for a band, a headlining band. So a
Right.
band that's flying out, whatever. Like, if you cover a band, you can be a sponsor. Just one even. And we had different tiers, where we would give you shirts, we would give you a VIP section of the whatever, like if you wanted to do more. But like that was our main objective, is like, pay for an expensive band. Take that burden of X amount of money, like
Dude, that's the
six
way to do
flights
it, I
plus
think.
hotels plus whatever.
Yeah.
Take that off of our plate, and we got you, and you're in. And so we could come to a deal that made sense with Raising Canes. It would have been kind of funny to have
Yeah.
them on there if anything else, but it at the end of the day, it just we couldn't find anything that mutually worked out.
No, that's completely fair. Man, that's really awesome that the Bang on the Rock is growing and you guys, have the building it up and keeping it going, man. I really want to make it out to one. Hopefully, I'm really
Yeah,
hoping that would be really fucking cool, man.
yeah, I would love to. Let me know if you decide to come out this way, and we'll kick it. Let's let me know, and if you need to interviewing bands while you're here or something like that, let's I can try to make it happen.
Dude, honestly, that would be fucking rad. We could totally do that.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, man. And then let's see. As far as Terminal Nation, I know y'all have this album coming out, but do you have any plans to tour for the album?
So right now, our current employment and life situations for a lot of us isn't allowing us to tour a lot. So it's not like you'll see a lot of bands maybe similar size of us. As soon as the record comes out, they
Yep.
hit the road for a month. We ain't doing that, but we are playing a lot of shows coming up.
Okay.
But so when we because we have so limited opportunities to tour, we got to make it count. We got to make the most of it. So we just did a weekend in, like I said, Decibel Metal and Beer Fest.
Mm-hmm.
We played with Enforced in New York City, Worcester, Mass, a pretty big show with Pale Horse, Cruel Hand, Kanashi. So
Very
like,
cool.
in my opinion, that's worth, that's awesome. Not to
Absolutely.
say that we're above playing small shows. It's just like, we got to get the most we can out of it, because those shows were, we're flying
Right.
out and renting a car for the weekend. So the barrier of entry for us to do that is thousands of dollars off the
Yes.
top.
Right.
And so it's got to make sense. It's got to make sense for us. So we have another couple of weekender runs coming up like that. We'll be hitting Colorado for the first time. Some spots in Texas for the first. Later in the year, we've gotten, the closer we get to the album coming out, the more like kind of almost imposter syndrome
Oh yeah, I
offers
bet.
we've been getting. Where it's like, hey, would you want to be or support tour that's X band, X band, X band, and we're like, fuck. Do
Damn.
we like? Because we're used to saying no. I mean, like last year we turned down offers with bands that uh, tours with bands that would make 16-year-old me throw up.
Damn. Yeah.
And but it's just it's just what we are. We're in a little bit different of a place now. We do understand that we have to play cities we haven't played. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to be on the road for a month, but or 2 months or whatever. But we're gonna probably start saying yes to more offers as they make sense for us.
Yeah.
Me, there's a possibility we're going to do 2 to 3 weeks of a pretty big tour um, as a supporting act towards the end of this year. More hardcore death metal leaning
Yeah.
band that's well known, like in this part of the country. And then fucking yesterday, we got a that we are in the running for a fucking bananas tour next year.
Whoa.
So
Okay.
I don't want to. I can't say anything. I don't want to.
No,
Not knock on
that's
wood to not jinx ourselves.
yeah.
But like maybe we were maybe like rooms that are like 5,000 cap rooms or like
Whoa.
small arenas or some shit. I'm doing a little bit of guesstimation.
Right.
But this is a fucking. This would be an opportunity that would be like it's I mean with like metal legends like, I don't know, so we'll see what happens, but I think we were just we kind of got the nod of like, hey, you guys were selected as being one of the bands that they would like to have on this tour, and I'm like, yo, we're rolling in a van. What do we do when we pull up
Right.
to an arena or something? Like, what
Yeah.
the fuck is this? Like, how am I having this conversation with myself right now? We said we're if you want us, we're in. We'll do whatever we can to
Right.
make it work because I think financially it would make sense for us to take off that time if it's a tour that big. But
Hmm.
yeah, we do have plans to tour. I want can't wait to go back to like Chicago. We played there once, one of the best shows we've ever done. We hit the mid Northeast here recently. We're going to be playing Colorado soon. We need to get back to California. So there's a lot of places we want to go. We almost did the UK this year, but if it's not this year, it'll be next year.
Okay.
Uh, Cruelty like planned a Japan tour with Cruelty and Coffins, and it didn't happen. But now I think all of those bands, Coffins, Cruelty, and Terminal Nation, their value has gone up
Fuck
a
yeah,
lot
dude.
since the beginning of COVID, and so like we could maybe have a pretty sick in Japan. I would love for that to happen one day, but Japan and UK, Europe are all bucket list things for
For
me.
sure.
Those would probably be into next year, but we're gonna hit a bunch of cities that we've never hit before in the U.S. this year. So I'm excited. Not played the Pacific Northwest before. Would love to play. Um, yeah,
Dude,
I think
if you
this.
guys are coming through around Boise, I can definitely hit you guys
Whoa,
get you
that's
some
where you're at
shows.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you guys do
Let's talk about this. Let's talk
absolutely,
about this.
man.
My homie Charlie from
Ingrown?
Ingrown
Yes.
in Rejection Pact, we got to play some shows together. And I was like, brother, just tell me when. Just let me know. Yeah, that would be cool. That would be really sick.
Fuck yeah.
I do think that Boise is very possible. It seems like very. We get Little Rock scene gets compared to Boise quite a bit
I
as
can
being like
see it. Yeah.
a small scene that, but like rocks. It thrives, and there's the bands like Ingrown that have international recognition.
Dude,
Are
the
carrying that torch.
yeah, man, no
I mean,
kidding.
Hummingbird of Death is from there
Yes, yes they
too. Yeah.
are. Yeah.
Okay, and that like maybe definitely a different audience, but like that's a legacy band in my opinion.
Dude,
Like
Septic Death. Septic Death is
Septic
actually from
Death,
Boise
yes.
too.
See, that's cool. And like, and not to say that these are small towns, Little Rock, Boise, but in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
compared to like LA or whatever, that's a small town.
Fuck yeah.
And so, like, being from a smaller city, dude does breeds innovation,
Mm-hmm.
breeds like anger, resentment, whether it's at where you're living, whatever. But it's cool shit. So yeah, like, shout out Boise. Boise rocks.
Hell yeah, man. Truly. And another thing too. resentment and stuff, because they like you said in Arkansas, they passed a shit ton of really shitty bills blocking all kinds of access to stuff. Same thing happened out here, man. There
Oh
were
yeah. Oh, recently.
book
Yeah,
yeah
very recently.
book bans and everything. Like no
Yep.
joke, it's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, it's terrible.
There is one good thing though. My kids, they go to school out here, obviously, and like, we have a new superintendent, and literally the day after that those bills were signed, she was like, "I'm gonna do everything in my power to make sure that we can be unaffected from this as much as possible." So like,
Cool.
shout out to that superintendent because
Yep.
she's dope.
Yep. Uh, like adversity breeds, um, the pushes
Resistance,
the
yeah,
human, resistance and pushing the human spirit. So, because maybe did she feel like that before, or I know, did she, would she have had the courage to say that
right,
before this? It was in her. It was in her, but did she know that she had the courage in her to say that?
right,
Because that's a pretty courageous thing. I mean, you're risking your career at that point, your livelihood, your ability to put food on the table. So, like, shout out that's cool. That's
yeah,
really fucking cool. Um, yeah, I mean, it looks like we're winding down on time.
yeah, man.
I mean, I think we had a fruitful conversation. I appreciate everything, man. The kind words. Check out the album, Terminal Nations, Echoes of the Devil's Den drops on May 3rd on 20 bucks spin. If you're a fan of heavy music in general, I think you would take some sort of variation out of it. But a little bit of death metal, a little bit of grind, a little bit of doom, a little bit of sludge, and a little bit of hardcore kind of ham fisted into what I think is a very well executed piece of work. So I'm excited
Absolutely,
and very proud of it.
dude. I'm stoked too. I can't wait. Thank you very much for taking the time out for me. I appreciate you, Stan.
Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll chit chat soon.
For
Take
sure.
care.
Dude, you
All
too.
right.
Thank you, Stan.
All right.
Talk to you.